if you knew you were enough? What would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette Birnard. Hello everybody, and welcome to my Enough Factor podcast. I'm your life coach and relationship solutionist, Suzette Birnard, helping you to redefine what makes you enough in life and in love on your own terms. This podcast, as its name suggests, is about your enough factor. And each week, I and my guests endeavor to amplify 3 critical factors of enoughness: your voice, your value, and your vision, so you can bring your authentic self into your relationships and experience love and life in a brand new way. Now, as much as I'm known to give advice, solicited or not, I wouldn't be as effective without this platform and you, my loyal enough warriors who tune in every week and send me texts and direct messages about how much the episodes resonate with you. Now, if you're new, what you'll experience here is what my listeners tell me keeps them coming. They love the honesty and the depth and how my podcasts fill in the blanks for them in ways that listening to a relationship video can't, or even talking to their therapist doesn't. I do it because I know what it's like to get a piece of information here and a piece there and try to put it together only to find out that I don't know what I don't know. That's why with my podcast and my coaching solutions, I don't just tell you how, but I tell you the why behind the how and help you to connect it in a way that is meaningful for you. That I found is the only way that it'll stick. That's also why over the next several weeks, I'm talking with men and women who, like me, found love later in life and aren't too proud to share with you not only what it took to find love, but how they are being challenged to do love differently this time. In fact, today's episode, part of my Finding Love Later in Life series, is being brought to you by my 3-month coaching program, Doing Love Differently. And it focuses on ending the cycle of self-betrayal, mistrust, and attracting Mr. Wrongs. If the way you're doing love ain't working, then hey, it's time to do love differently. To find out more about it, go to SuzetteSolutions.com/our programs. Check it out. Now, without further delay, today's episode. Here to help me today is life and relationship coach Joseph Kemp. Joseph has always been the voice of reason since about age 17. He was the person that was often sought when folks encountered challenges in life and needed a listening ear. But within the past couple of years, he felt more of a pull toward relationships and family. When he'd hear witty phrases about relationships like happy wife, happy life, and behind every great man is a great woman, he began to question the absoluteness of the phrases. Don't both people have to be happy in order for relationships to work? He pondered. And what happens to single men who don't have a wife? Can't they be great? Right? The pondering turned into a desire to focus on healthy practices and giving people a different perspective. One where men and women take ownership of their own relationship, not putting that responsibility on the other. And so, as a life and relationship coach and speaker, his goal is to empower singles and couples to build generational health through practical wisdom, discipline, and genuine commitment. So join me in giving a warm Enough Factor podcast welcome to Joseph Kemp. Welcome, Joseph.
How are you doing, Suzette?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic. Now, Joseph, I always like to start the podcast by asking what I call a truth and dare question. It's not like the typical truth or dare question. That's good news. But the bad news is you don't get a choice of which question you'll answer. It's truth and dare. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. What is the truth that your relationship journey revealed about you and dared you to take radical action on?
That's a powerful question to ask. I think what I recognized about myself that was needed was I had to take the lead when it pertained to personal growth, starting with my relationship with God. In order for me to be able to lead not just her, but the people who were following me, I had to continue to strive to be at my very best. And so I couldn't take any days off. I couldn't have lazy days. I couldn't have days where, I'm tired or I'm just going to coast through the day. I had to make the most of every single day and take advantage of the opportunity of the life that God has given me and challenge myself to continue to grow, to never get comfortable. And I think in doing that, it raised the level of expectancy, but also the level of effort with everyone who followed my leadership, starting with my wife.
Mm. I've seen the post of you and your wife, and she is absolutely lovely. I mean, her aura just comes through the post. So, what did you have to shift within yourself to be able to partner with her? Because I have a lot of high achieving women who look at pictures like that and they go, "Oh, I want that." I want somebody who looks at me like that. And I know that you didn't just marry her because she had cute eyes. There had to be something more than that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The most attractive thing in my wife that I've never, ever experienced with any other woman is her willingness to admit that she is wrong and change. I don't know if
Wow.
that's a common thing. I think from my experience, respectfully, I can't speak for all women. I've never seen it. It doesn't really exist. And as I've coached men and counseled men, they all have the same thought process. That was the most attractive thing to my wife. It's not about me having all the answers as a man. It's, can you have the humility as a woman to say, you know what, I was wrong for saying that, or the way that I think, this is how I was brought up, but I'm willing to change that because I understand that this is unhealthy for us. I understand that this is something that's hurting you, and I don't want to hurt you. I want to build with you. So that was the most attractive thing about her that wanted me to connect with her and grow with her. Here is a woman who wanted to admit her faults, even when she didn't understand what she was doing was unhealthy, and who wanted to change because she wanted to show me, not just through her words, but through her actions, that I matter to her, that my thoughts and my feelings matter to her. That was a total game changer for me.
That humility piece. You know, I think, and we talked about this a little before, because I coach high achieving women, and you're right. One of the main issues that I'm finding, especially because I'm 61, and a lot of the women that I talk to are 40 and above, it's almost like their difficulties in relationships have compromised that humility, that respect for their own feminine power, and they've exchanged that for this quote unquote strong woman ideology,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like they become demanding, like he has to do this and he has to be this way. And if there are any problems in the relationship, it's him, it's him, it's him. And one of the hardest things for me is to get them to stop focusing on him as the problem and seeing what is the most humbling, that relationships hold up a mirror. So if you're looking at all these things wrong with your partner, how is it showing you that very thing being problematic inside of you? And I'll give you an example. One of the hardest things for me, because I used to complain, oh God, I'm a magnet for unavailable men, emotionally unavailable men. It's like I just had this little tractor beam, right? It's like it just seemed like I attracted unavailable men, all different sizes, all different garden varieties, emotionally unavailable. And I remember praying and saying, God, I'm so sick of it. Every time I turn around, he's not available. Either he's a workaholic, or got a girlfriend, or he's got a wife, or he's in some way not emotionally available. When I share my feelings with him, he blames me. And I said, emotional unavailable. And I never forget that moment when I really believe it was the Spirit of God that tapped me on the shoulder and said, Suzette, it's because you're emotionally unavailable. I could not see that I was attracting who I was. I was emotionally unavailable. And so I kept attracting emotionally unavailable men. You're right. It's almost like I'm encountering too, even women of faith, this thing where they feel like men are the problem. He ought to do that. He ought to do this. If he was a real man. And I'm thinking, how is it that we have gone from humility to the arrogance of thinking that we as women can tell a man how to be a man and what he ought to be?
I don't know. Again, speaking from a man's perspective, this might offend some of your listeners, but I believe a lot of women are very arrogant. And I believe the notion that they think they know what a man is problematic, because you don't really hear men walking around saying they know what a woman is because they understand that they're not women. But for some reason, women believe that they know men, through and through, which is not true. I'll give some advice or, some key pointers, if you will, to your listeners.
Please do.
The worst thing you can ever do as a woman is to preach something to a man that you don't live. It is the quickest way to lose his respect. I'll give you an example. If you're a woman and you say, I want a man that's patient, kind, and understanding, and you don't practice those things, he's not going to respect you. And I'm not saying respect in the sense where he's going to call you out your name, right? If he's a man of character, but in the sense of like as an individual. Because the one thing you can't do is challenge a man to practice something that you don't practice. You want to influence a man in a positive way. If you are preaching a message as a woman, be what you preach, because that would encourage him to be like, you know what? She's talking to me about these things, but I also see her living them. Let me hear what she has to say. Let me start to implement some things she's telling me, because I see the fruit. I see it in your works. I see it in your lifestyle. But if you don't live that and you're trying to challenge him to live that, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. And it's sad to say, because I'm a woman of faith. And what I have found is that women of faith tend to be the least humble. When it comes to men, they tend to be the most preachy. If a man, say, makes a mistake or doesn't do what she thinks he should do, she's going to say, but the word says, but if you were a man of God. And I've heard and seen that. Sure, he might have issues that he's struggling with, just like we all do. We all are dealing with generational hurts and different things like that. But to take the total package and to vilify it because you don't understand it, or because, like you say, like I read in your bio, that you're not taking responsibility to become what you want to see in the other person, then I cry foul on that, right?
It's interesting to me, Suzette, that, and I think we kind of spoke about this before our previous conversation. On one end, many women feel that they know men. But then on the other end, they clearly don't know men because they're struggling with how to connect with them. And so I go back to the arrogance. There's this arrogance that I know what a man is, when if you look at statistically, most women haven't really been around positive male influences. So you haven't really experienced men to even understand a man or have an idea of what a man is, right? You have your ideology from, the music that you listen to, or the social media platforms, or the coaches, who are feeding out this message that is really dividing people. there's this division between men and women where everybody focuses on the differences instead of how those differences were created within us to grow together and build. But the idea that women believe that they know men, I think, is a hindrance for a lot of them. I think, to be honest, to say, you know what, I don't really know much about men. Let me try to learn and understand. And let me use my experiences in dating to try to see the similarities between men. What are things they like and don't like? Let me actually try to study them, not to prove that I'm better than them as a gender, but to actually understand them and connect with them, because that's what you're expecting a man to do on the other end. A man doesn't come into the relationship expecting a woman to be a man. He understands, like, okay, I have to try to learn and understand you as best as I can. I have to try to love you according to how you receive love. And so if women would take the same effort, going back even to my wife, again, it was a game changer for me because I had never seen it. I've been on this earth over 3 decades. I've never seen that woman, not in my teens, not in my 20s, not in my early 30s. I've never seen her. It seems like it's this universal thing. And again, I'm only speaking from my experience. I don't speak for all the women in the world, where there's kind of this arrogance, like everything's about me. You need to make sure I'm happy. You need to make sure I'm loved. And if you do those things, you will automatically be happy as a man. It's one of the great lies that's been taught to us. Happy wife, happy life, right? Well, you can be happy and that man can be miserable. Your happiness doesn't guarantee his happiness, right? You need to understand what are the things that connects with him as well, right? Because becoming one takes 2 people. It's a continual journey of both personal growth and relational growth. And if you don't have that, you have 1 or 2 options. You can stay committed to a relationship that'll be unhealthy, or you separate. Mm-hmm. Those are usually the 2 things that take place.
Yeah. Is that what you mean when you talk about generational health?
Yes.
Is that one of the components?
So generational health is really, is really understanding what are the habits that you are practicing. This is why I coach on habits. It's when I got this revelation after much study, not just from the word, but also through books, I realized that that's the difference maker. A lot of us are operating off beliefs that never translate into action. It's something that we believe but don't practice. And if you don't practice it, it doesn't manifest itself. Generational health is all about how you think, how you interact, right? How you approach, intentionally putting certain things into practice. Okay, this is what I want. Then your next question was to be, what habits do I have to develop so I can acquire those things, so I can attain them? Because just believing and speaking affirmations, it doesn't change who you are. And there's a lot of people, Miss Suzette, they have, a great mindset in the way they think about themselves, but the habits are still poor. And so they feel defeated after a while, right? The Bible talks about hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so they have this hope because they have a different mindset, but because they haven't implemented the habits or learned the habits, their life never changes. Their relationships never change. They just continue down the same cycle.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you're talking real. And I know the listeners might pull their toes in because you're stepping on them. But I believe if we really receive truth, that we will really get the answers. And I love what you said about learning about each other, because that was one of the things that helped me, Joseph, because I don't talk as one who has gotten it right all the time. I was that woman, if a man did something that hurt my feelings. But underneath that was a very scared woman, a lonely woman, a woman who really just wanted to be loved for who she was. I wanted to be respected and regarded and seen and valued as me. But my pain caused me to think that if I did not have this strong veneer, that I'd be walked over by a man. That if I didn't have this strength, he would take advantage of me. I thought vulnerability was weakness.
I have a question for you, Ms. Suzette,
Sure.
And probably your listeners. They don't know me, but they know you. Why do women think that everything is about them? Why would they believe that a man would want to be in a relationship with a human being who doesn't care about what they think and feel, who wants every situation to be about them. Why in the woman's mind does that make sense? When you get down to the basis of just how you want to be treated as a person, why would you as a woman feel that not only would that be a healthy relationship, but that a man would want to be with you? If you think everything is about you, why would that be attractive to him?
You've said something very key, a person. I think we have ceased to see men as living, breathing, worthy people who have feelings too. And just because a man doesn't express them in the same way doesn't make his feelings any less legitimate. That was something that I had to confront. I had ceased to see men. As a matter of fact, I did not see a man as a person. I saw him as somebody to meet my need for validation, my need for worth, my need for worthiness. I needed him to pay on the debt that the previous men in my life created. So I turned him into an object. So you're right, the change has to happen first, but to answer your question, and sure, I want the listeners to weigh in. But me being a woman, I can answer it for me. It was when I started seeing you as a person. That's when things changed.
It is a struggle for a lot of guys because I think unfairly guys get put into a box, all guys. There are some guys, yes, who have unhealthy practices and they have a certain mindset because they've been influenced by the culture, right? What they think manhood is, having multiple women, not being committed, not being honest. That's what they know. That's what they've been raised to. I'm pretty sure you know the statistics, over 50% of homes don't have fathers, which are affecting both boys and girls as they grow up. But the idea that women don't want to commit to the process, it's a very selfish view that a lot of women have, respectfully. And I want to be clear, I am not saying that women are the reason why relationships don't work. We're addressing in your podcast session right now women, so I just want to be clear about that. I'm not against women. Obviously, I'm married. But I do see a common thread, and I've had this conversation with my wife, even when we were dating. And, she began to express some things to me as well, that just the culture around her and women that she's been around, the whole strong woman, right? This independent movement has influenced a lot of women to become very cold and believe that, in a lot of ways they don't need men, but you're lying to yourself because God created you that way. And no matter what you tell yourself, God created you as a woman to have a yearning for men. The same way he created men to have a yearning for women in a healthy and godly way. But the idea that everything should be about you and you be content with that and believe that the man is supposed to just come into your life and kind of save you, if you will, and make sure your life is great and your life is wonderful and that he would be okay just with that small role, you have this diminished the creation of God. And what I'm constantly encouraging and challenging men is to understand that you are more than just a guy who has a job or who is looking to have a wife and kids. That's great. But the creator of the universe, he breathed life into you for a greater purpose. And so it's important for men to begin to, as I say, put 10 toes down and begin to understand who they are and why they're here. Not, how can I find a wife? And so we have to shift our perspectives on both sides. Women need to understand who they are and what it means to walk in the gift of being nurturing, because gifts have to be cultivated. And I believe that a lot of women will rely on their intuition and their ability to nurture and think that somehow makes them, more superior than men somehow. But a lot of them haven't really cultivated those gifts at the surface level, the same way men haven't cultivated their gift of vision. I had this revelation I'll share with you, and your listeners. I was talking to God one day because I talk to him all the time. And I got the revelation of the two gifts that men and women have that's very powerful, that coexist. So men have the gift of vision. They can see things before they take place. They can capture something before it begins to manifest itself. Women have the gift of intuition. And so they can begin to see the process unfold before it takes place. Now think about this for a moment, Ms. Suzette, when you put these together. When you take a man who has vision, who can see beyond the future, and then you can take a woman who can capture that vision and begin to process it, have the intuition to process how it will lay out and how it will take place before it happens, that's a very powerful thing. So God gave man vision and God gave woman intuition. And together, this is how you fulfill the purposes that God has for us.
I love that. I love that. And I think if women and men can see the possibilities, can see the differences in that kind of collective, whole, magnificent, powerful way, then it can change so much in the world. I truly believe that. And sometimes you wonder why God made men and women so different. Like, God, was this a joke? Why'd you do that? Why you make us so different? That's just like crazy, right? But actually, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And I'm glad that he put attraction there, because I don't know if men and women would naturally navigate toward each other without attraction, because we are so different. But I love the fact that the attraction is what holds our gaze long enough to help us to work through those different things that we probably wouldn't work through with anybody else, And so I think it's brilliant. And I think when people can find that kind of partnership, that it truly is the greatest reflection of God's majesty and power in the earth. I truly believe that. And I know many of my listeners might not be Christian. They might have other faith bases, and that's okay. But at the fundamentals, we have to learn how to see each other through the eyes and through the lens of humility, through the lens of love. And if we can do that, then I believe there can be more kindness, because I think kindness is something that's so missing. I don't want us to run out of time without you telling our listeners how they can connect with you and what you want their takeaway to be from our conversation.
Sure. Have me on, Suzette. I really appreciate it. Every opportunity is a gift. What I want your listeners to take away from this, the best thing that you can do as a woman is to stop looking at everyone else. Stop looking at the woman around you unless you are encouraged to be better, and work on yourself. If that's therapy, if that's coaching, if that's changing the whole dynamic of your circle of influence, sitting back and pointing a finger at men would never bring you into a healthy relationship. A relationship is a continual process, from dating to the engagement stage to marriage to being married. And so you will always be required to grow. So you should start now. Start working on the way that you think. If you're emotionally unhealthy and you have a sense for that, go and get the work that you need. If that's therapy, if that's coaching, seek it out, right? People have different prices. Figure it out. Invest in yourself. Self-love has to be you being able to work on you. For the believers, I take you to the second greatest commandment, which is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. You can't love your neighbor if you don't know how to love you, which means to work on you. You need to work on all areas: spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Financial will vary, but those 4 top areas, that's on you. It starts with you. If you're not a believer, principles apply no matter what. You need to continue to work on yourself. You will attract what you desire if you become better. It always starts with you. It doesn't start with the man showing up in your life. If you don't want to accept that truth, be willing to continue to live life as it is, but make sure that you take full ownership of that, because you made that choice not to change. That's not on anybody else. Where you guys can reach me, I'm really just on Instagram. I am Joseph Kemp. IAM JOSEPH KEMP. I do a weekly series called Relationship Discussions every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You're more than welcome to chime
in. Joseph, thank you. I appreciate you so much. And listeners, as you continue your relationship journey, I want you to never forget that you are worthy, you are worth it, you are more than enough. Bye now. You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.